Welcome into Collect TV. We are joined today by Mr. College Basketball, John Fanta, former colleague of mine when I was at Fox Sports, and now I'm talking to him here at Collect. And John does work for Fox Sports, NBC Sports, calling games. You see him on the Field of 68 podcast. Just came back. Hopefully, he's got a little bit of sleep from San Antonio, from the biggest weekend in college basketball of the year. John, how are you? Welcome in.
KJ, it's great to be with you. Thank you so much. And yes, got caught up on some Z's, but tell you what, it's an adrenaline rush. Final Four weekend is so much fun because you have the combination of the culmination of the season while also talking with a lot of the new hires. It's also the sports convention in a way where all the coaches are out there. So there's so much going on, so many special guests and whatnot, and had a blast out there.
Well, why it's so fresh in mind, I have to ask you about those three games you saw in San Antonio, especially the ending of Duke Houston, and then what we saw with Houston and Florida at the end there on Monday night. Really drama in all three games, and three heavyweight number one seeds, and I think it absolutely delivered. If the chalk held to give us great games, I think that was a good fine end result.
I'll tell you what, it was an amazing Final Four in so many ways. You think about it, the three games were decided by a combined 11 points, tied for the third smallest margin in Final Four history. 1950 and 1982 each featured a combined 10-point spread between the three games. But think about this, Kevin. We hadn't seen such small margin of games, of differential, since the tournament expanded to 64 teams in 1985. So it more than lived up to the hype. It was really just spectacular. The drama, the down to the wire finishes. How about the comebacks? I mean, amazing to think that Florida in the Elite Eight was down by 10 to Texas Tech, but then down by 9 with 2:51 on the clock. And Thomas Houck hits 2 threes. He was a 33% three-point shooter. So Florida's resilience was amazing. And you got to get stops down the stretch. And everybody all year talked about Florida's offense. But Florida won this championship with defense. They forced 4 straight turnovers in as many possessions to end the game against Houston. Unbelievable. How Houston did not get a shot off in any of their final 4 possessions is almost unfathomable for a team that was sitting in a national championship game. But that is what happened. You're down by 9 to Auburn. You're down by 12 to Houston. And Kevin, when you go down 12 to Houston, that feels like 20 against most other teams. So truly unbelievable what the Gators were able to do. And within this Final Four, here you have Jon Scheyer, who's 37 years of age, and back-to-back years loses to NC State in a game that he was favored in and that they were in position to win, and then loses a 14-point lead. And with the number 1 pick in the draft and 3 top 10 picks. That for me, if there's one takeaway to spin it forward, it is the next time Jon Scheyer steps on the floor in a big NCAA tournament game, that will be the storm cloud that he has to erase. That he has to exercise that demon. Whether it's fair or not, he's the head coach at Duke. But what a finish. What a championship game. As we saw with the viewership, it peaked at close to 22 million. It had 18 million viewers on average. That's amazing to think because Duke was not in the championship game, but I think it shows, one, Florida. I mean, that fan base didn't really go anywhere. It's just a matter of like they were a heavyweight again. When you've won titles in the last 2 decades, you're more than recognizable, and that fan base runs deep. And for Houston, it was, can they get this one? I feel for Kelvin Sampson, Kevin. He's 69 years of age. His team was right in position. They just could not find a way to score down the stretch. And credit to Florida defensively for getting those stops, for making their free throws. And Walter Clayton. Kevin, if there was any stock riser from the tournament, more than anybody else, Walter Clayton went from a guy who might get drafted to he will get drafted in the first round of the NBA draft. He got paid in this tournament in his final year of college. Not like he could come back for more NIL.
Yeah, I think it's a Final Four that, when you look at the three teams that lost, will be known as much for the heartbreak. You mentioned Shire, you mentioned Houston. I'm old enough to remember, Lorenzo Charles and knocking out the Dream and Clyde the Glide. Just absolutely incredible comebacks, incredible endings. Heartbreak to not get that shot off, as you mentioned. Can you talk a little bit about the overall quality of the tournament itself? I know, probably fewer upsets than we saw in the early rounds, but that really made for the last 2 weeks to be just really phenomenal heavyweight showdowns all over the place.
Well, it's interesting because this is where sometimes in our sports world we paint a picture and then we either get stuck in the corner when certain people paint a certain picture, or they actually end up, taking their victory lap. Because this tournament will be the ultimate example of it when we get to next year. So we are forgetting that just 2 years ago, we had 5 double-digit seeds in the Sweet 16. And then when we got to the Final Four, everyone's like, well, this Final Four is not great. It's Florida Atlantic. It's Miami. It was Connecticut, but it was San Diego State. And everyone's like, it's going to be a UConn coronation. And that's what we had the last 2 years. Now, this year, we had the 4 number 1 seeds for just the second time ever, first time since 2008 when we saw Mario Chalmers and Russell Westbrook and Kevin Love and just an amazing, amazing Final Four lineup. Derrick Rose as well. But we're not going to see this often, the 4 number 1s. We might see the high budget teams on the 3, 4, or 5 line be able to make it. And if you want to argue that money is a game changer in college sports, I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's not, because it does produce a large bankroll and therefore a lot of talented players, and then it's on a coach to figure it out. That being said, it's basketball. This is not college football where the game is where an offensive line could just push around the Cinderella story in a college football playoff game and roll to the victory. Basketball is just a different animal. And this tournament, all year long, we had the most blowouts in college basketball nationally. Now, that's partially because we're seeing a rise in threes taken, and therefore a rise in explosiveness, implosiveness from teams and games. It's going to be something to study here going into next year of whether or not we see the same percentage, or that we were just in an otherworldly season where the top of the top was that good. This Final Four was better from an efficiency standpoint. All 4 teams were better than 21 of the last 22 national champions. I don't think we're getting that collection in the Final Four every year. I just think when you're playing a one-game tournament, so much can happen. Kevin, look at it this way. It could have just as easily been Texas Tech in the Final Four. It could have been. Auburn could have gotten tripped up against Michigan. Michigan was beating them pretty soundly with 10 minutes on the clock. A lot can change within the course of these games. I think you want your Final Four to be heavyweights at the end of the day, and the ratings would prove that because the proof is in the pudding. But to suggest that we'll never see Cinderella go far again is short-sighted and in the moment killing off what we have years and years and years of evidence with. We're going to still see elite coaches. We're still going to see Dusty May, who's now at Michigan, at Florida Atlantic working magic. This year we saw Eric Olin at UC San Diego pull off an amazing season. They came within a possession of beating Michigan. McNeese, they clobbered Clemson for 35 minutes, hung on, almost collapsed, but hung on and won the game. Drake had a tremendous season and won their first round game over Missouri. What happens when Drake and McNeese are in the same pod and now they play each other in the second round? Oh, will it be? Well, it was luck there. That was just how the bracket went. So I thought this tournament did not deliver early. It did not. But you ultimately remember a tournament if it produces high-level semis and championship games. When I ask people, when was the last championship game you remember before this year? The majority of the answers, and what would your answer be?
Probably Chris Jenkins.
Yep. And that was 9 years ago.
Yep.
So, and I would still say that finish is more memorable than the one we just got, but right. I'm going to remember the way that this went down because of just how thrilling all 3 games were. And I think if there's one thing, and disagree with me if you want, I will forever look at this and say, what could have been with Cooper Flagg?
Mm-hmm.
And then Houston, and then what could have been for Houston, and Florida ended up finding a way with a 39-year-old head coach who went through a lot within his own season as well. So I agree with people that say, the tournament didn't deliver as much drama early on. That's the truth. But to suggest that now that that's how we define it, simply because of bankrolls, let's see if this becomes a multi-year trend before we kill it off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Cooper Flagg found out something that history shows is the best player does not always win. I mean, you do get your Carmelo Anthony finishes, but sometimes you don't, and it's hard to pull it off, especially when you only get one shot. What I want to switch gears and ask you about now is the women's side of things, where Paige Beckers in her final try, being one of the top players in the sport, a career beset by injuries, obviously, they did pull it off. But UConn was a team that you saw, John, in the Big East tournament, and what I want to ask you about is how did that team turn it on and take it to a new level? Where when it got to the final weekend, they were the most dominant team in the sport. But if you go back just a couple months, they lost at Tennessee. They lost at home to USC with a healthy Juju Watkins, obviously. And then something clicked. And you saw them in the Big East tournament before. And when they got into March, and certainly when they got down to Tampa, it became clear that they were of the 8 teams in the men's and women's Final Four, they were the only one that was not a number 1 seed. And they probably look like the most dominant outfit out of all 8. So how did that happen, John?
Two things clicked for them. Number one, Sarah Strong. Right. Sarah Strong in November and December was not who Sarah Strong ended up being at the end of the season. She is a matchup nightmare of all matchup nightmares. I don't know how you stop her, Kevin, because she could score it inside. She could shoot the basketball from the perimeter. For those who don't know, she's the daughter of Allison Feaster, who had a very successful career in the Ivy League in college and then in the WNBA. And you could tell that Sarah comes from amazing genes, both from a maturation standpoint and a talent standpoint. But to be at her size and to have guard skills is a direct reflection of the modernization of the sport. She's 6'2", but she can play like a guard. And she is a handful to defend. You cannot just put one player on her for 40 minutes. It's not going to work. So you have a matchup nightmare, and you pair her with 2 veteran, healthy, health helps too. UConn have been bit by the injury bug more than anybody in recent years. Fully healthy Paige Beckers and AZ Fudd. The championship game is the best evidence of it. Beckers was kind of quiet early. Mm-hmm. Fudd is humming along. Strong is doing her thing, and it's like, if 2 of these 3 are going, but here's the other thing that clicked. Number 2. If you want to say that defense wins championships, this Connecticut team silenced their opponents in the NCAA tournament. So early on in the title game, UConn was missing a ton of shots. A ton. Mm-hmm. Was South Carolina gaining any ground? No. That is how UConn won this national championship. Their defense was unrelenting. In the past couple of years, Gino Auriemma would tell you, his team was kind of soft at times. And they traded baskets to win. That's not how Gino won 11 national championships prior to this year. His team had a toughness factor. He solved the post issues, combined with the fact that South Carolina, one of South Carolina's biggest flaws this year is they didn't have an alpha bucket getter that could go and just get them buckets. And they didn't have the same interior domination that they've had in recent years. They didn't have an Aaliyah Boston walking through that door either. But I just thought that for Connecticut, Strong's versatility, and this is exactly why Gino Auriemma, to me, will not retire. She just opened up a 3-year window for him to win at least another ring. And I will call it to you right now. He will get a 13th ring with her on the floor. If she's healthy, he's getting at least another one, which is just amazing, Kevin. Like that, to me, I don't know how you feel. I don't think we're in such a in the moment world in sports all the time. And that's why I love what you guys do, because you guys have so much that looks back and looks at the history of it. Like, the guy became the all-time winningest coach in the sports history this week, or in November, and just became a 12-time national champion. And it led things on Sunday night and then kind of disappears from the fray. And my thought is, we are watching one of the greatest coaching figures in sports history. And to the people who, for the last several years, have said that the game has passed him by. Gino Auriemma at 71 said, "Not so fast, my friends. I've still got it." And he still knows how to recruit. And at Connecticut, Kevin, it just feels like nothing will be the same when Gino's gone. But that school has built such a basketball infrastructure in a football driven world where they do have FBS football. They don't have a home in terms of a league, but they do possess it. And it's not like they're not trying to win in it. Jim Mora would suggest they're trying to win in it. But I think it's just a fascinating angle when you look at that school that, look at it this way. The last 3 years, they've been having parades in downtown Hartford for national championship teams, 2 prior for the men and now this year for the women. So it's a remarkable story. And for Connecticut, you're right. They're the testament to peak at the right time. They found their edge, their toughness in the last month.
Yeah, and I think if Gino ending his so-called title drought, they hadn't won since Breonna Stewart's last year. I think it's 9 years. And if at age 71 in January, maybe he was sitting there thinking, well, this is Paige's last year. If we win, maybe I ride off into the sunset. I think when he saw Sarah Strong and I think Stu Bird and Diana were talking about this on their show, he probably saw Sarah Strong and he gets a little bit greedy and thinks, I got at least 1 or 2 more here with this young woman. And, so he may stick around a little longer.
And what's he going to do?
Yeah.
This is what I talk with these older coaches about all the time. They're like, it's hard. Kevin, it's hard to sit down and sit back. Mm-hmm. I just like, you and I work together. And I think we're both wired the same way. We're like, I got to be doing something.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that these older coaches are feeling the same way. Like, what, you want to sit down and have breakfast and not think about competing and winning? That's the way that these people are wired. That's the way Gino's wired. And like, he's got a great staff. He's got a restaurant in the neighborhood that he can own and partake in. And he loves it so much. If he's in good enough health, why not keep going?
Sure. Well, as you can probably see from these first few minutes, there's nothing better than talking basketball with John Fanta. It's one of the things I love the most about you, John. Your enthusiasm for the game comes across immediately. You're the great ambassador for the game. It's infectious. And you're doing a really cool thing at Dapps Bounty that we want to talk to you about, which is you're offering up an experience for fans out there with John Fanta. And fans can pick whether they'd like to have dinner with you, whether they'd like to play golf with you. Both of those would be very appealing to me. But the other one is maybe attend a college basketball game with you, which is absolutely would be my choice. So talk a little bit about that particular auction that's going on right now. And what are you kind of hoping that person will pick, and what kind of person are maybe you hoping will win this thing?
So I want to give a lot of credit to my agency group, Creative Artists Agency, CAA, because I've got a great agent, Kevin Belby, and one of his teammates, Catherine McConnell, came to me and said, Dapps is looking for experiences, and they're looking for college basketball ambassadors to do different things with the fans. Kevin, I love the fans. The fans are the people who are consuming our content and who make it fun. They're the ones who are most engaged. They're the ones who are interested. We do it for them. I'm a fan. You're a fan. Any media member, if they tell you they're not, we are. Now we have a job to do, but I feel like when I'm interviewing a coach, I want to ask them the question that Joe in Smithfield wants to know the answer to. So for me, when my agency comes to me and says, Dapps is looking for people to auction off experiences with and give fans a chance to engage with us, that is right up my alley, because I love meeting people and I love getting to know people. And for me, this was a no-brainer. We started talking with Dapps, and they said, what would you like? What would you like the list to look like of different experiences? I said, whatever people want to do. If they put other and they want me to come have dinner at their house with them and talk college basketball, so be it. That is great. I am all in for this. Let's go to a game together. I would love to go to a game with some fans and talk with them about different storylines and talk with them about different players. If it is a round of golf, we're going to be spending some time in the woods looking for my team.
I was about to ask how your game was, because I'm not sure about your game.
My game is fine. I do need some reps. I get back out there. When I get some reps, my game is solid.
Okay,
I would
good
say
to hear.
for a common golfer, I can hit the ball fairly straight, and my driver's what I rely upon, and then I just kind of hang in from there. So I can hang in on a golf course and be sufficient. But this is great. I think what Dapps is doing is fantastic. They are what they're doing is they're providing a bridge
Hmm.
between us and the fans.
Hmm.
And I'm all about that. That's why I love Final Four weekend because I can be in San Antonio on the Riverwalk, talking with people, engaging with people. So, when people say to me, when people come up to me and say, I'm a big fan of yours, I will never take that for granted
Hmm.
because that is not at all what you expect when you're doing this job, but you are deeply, deeply grateful that somebody even considers that of you. And that's how I've always tried to do the job with humility, with kindness. And I know it can get you somewhere if you do it that way. Not in a cocky way, not in a I did this way. I'll never be that way because I'll never take it for granted. So for me to give people the experiences and for Dapps to do this and come to me, I thought it was an awesome thing. I loved it. You know what, Kevin? I'm being totally real with you when I say this, and you know me because you hired me. When they came to me and said we want to do this for fans, I don't even know what's in it for. Like all I know is I get to experience it with them. I don't know what's in it for me. And Kevin, frankly, I don't care because if people actually want to take the time and spend some time with me, um, that makes me. If that makes them happy, that is the least that I can do for people, and I don't take that for granted.
Hmm. Well, let me flip that around on you because you are a fan, and as you said, and if you were able to have a fantasy Dapps Bounty where you could have an experience with anyone in college basketball, living or dead, who would you pick, John, and what would you want to do with that person?
Well, I think what I would want to do is go on a hoops bus tour for a week with Bill Walton, John Thompson, and Lou Carnesecca. And I think that the three of us could just have a heck of a time. I've heard all these stories about them, and I would love to experience it. Bill Walton, if I could pick any, I didn't get a chance to really know Bill. We've met, but I never got it. Kevin, if I could work with anybody for 2 hours, and I know it would be a joyride,
Be a roller coaster. Yeah.
I really wish that we could have worked together because I love the humor. I love the entertainment value. I thought he was just a fascinating character. And only he could do what he did on a game and
Yeah.
make it entertaining and not get people to think otherwise. But Bill, I heard, was such a kind soul and treated everybody the same. And when you consider Bill Walton's accolades, he had every reason to not treat people the right way because of what he accomplished.
Yeah.
And I just think that those three figures, John Thompson, I got to interact with him some. I interviewed him one time, and when he walked in, when he was in a wheelchair. When he rolled into the room, he called me an MFer. And but somebody said to me, that's the best form of compliment you can get from John. And I always thought that was so funny. And when we started talking through games, every game that John won that I looked back at, John would say, who won that game? Before we kept going. And I'd keep going. And he'd go, no, no, who won that game? I go, the Georgetown Hoyas. I brought up the game he didn't win. He wouldn't ask who won that game.
Yeah.
But, I love people with spirit. I love people who are unique. And I love people who have a lot of heart. And, Lou Carnesecca, I think, was that to a T in how he built up St. John's in New York City, and just your throwback Italian who got it. So if I only could pick one, it would be Walton, and it would be on a Madden Cruiser for a week of games. But that would be my experience of college basketball.
Yeah. Well, when you talk about heart and personality, I think that's one of the things that is helped you kind of become a little bit of a breakthrough star in the college basketball media space over the last couple of years. How has it been to experience that? And did you ever think that you would be serenading Shaquille O'Neal with Lionel Richie? Tell us a little bit about how that went down.
Yeah, so I'll tell you what. No, the answer is no. I didn't think that. And what's fun about this is there's just things that happen that you don't expect. I think that that's what I love about the job. It's like, Kevin, I couldn't have even told you this time last week that I'd be with Shaquille O'Neal. And I learned this from my dad, who was a business owner in Cleveland. My dad could treat the guy, you know, the homeless guy on the street in Cleveland. He could have a conversation with him for an hour. And then when he met, this is for the Clevelanders out there, when he met Bernie Kosar, which he did, who's a Browns legend, he could, the same type of conversation would happen between the two in Northeast Ohio. Same type. And just kind of learn like everybody's a person too. And you got to humanize this stuff before you go any further. So for me, college basketball's been a device for me which I'm grateful for me to do what I love. And that is tell stories and do play-by-play and do interviews and whatnot. And I think when I came into the sport, Kevin, really starting in 2017, I think the sport was going through a bit of a crisis of like, is there energy around it? Do people care? What do people want? Is it just something that people follow in March? And I still believe that a lot of people, a good majority of people followed in March. That being said, what I also found, Kevin, is for the distinct people who were following it year round, there's a base for it that doesn't go away in July. They exist, but there's not a lot of places for them to find their material.
Right.
So you have a chance to differentiate yourself in a way that maybe other sports people cannot. So Shaq, get reached out to, again, you got to have a great agency and CAA. It's been awesome to me. And, they said, hey, can you go on Shaq's show? Can I? I said, what time? Name the time. I'm in. I can't wait. So show up on Saturday afternoon ahead of the Final Four games. Kevin, I'm sitting on set. The live audience is there. And in walks Shaquille O'Neal, and I have never seen anything like it. I mean, surrounded by cameras. It was unbelievable to watch. He sits down, and the show begins. And you know what I was thinking, Kevin? I'm like, this guy played for years in the NBA and was a legend. I'm not kidding you, Kevin. He sat down and the cameras rolled and we went. I'm like, Shaq is more talented than anybody thinks. And we all think he's really talented. It is not easy to walk in somewhere, sit down and go. Right. Go on the air and just go. And we did about a half hour of laughs. And the full interview as we're talking is about to be released. And we had a great time. And he told me that I was one of the whitest boys he ever met. And I laughed my tail off. It was funny. It was witty. It was funny and cool. And I love Shaq. And I just think the world of him. Now, after having met him, I couldn't have thought. I thought he was absolutely a joy. And it's easy to see why Turner Sports has had the relationship with him that they've had. And it's easy to see why, remember, he came into Inside the NBA when the show was already well established. And a lot of people were wondering, how's it going to work? He's great. We had a great time, and I'll never forget that. That was a really cool opportunity to be interviewed by one of the greatest people in basketball history.
Yeah. One of the other oversized personalities that I know you've also had a little bit of a bond with is Rick Pitino. In the same Dapps Bounty auction that you're in, he's auctioning off his famous all-white suit that he wore to a game earlier this year, which is a blast from his past. You were on the Pitino to St. John story very early for us at Fox. I know you did the Pitino Chronicles for us and really got in on the ground floor there. You talk about stories in March and stories throughout the rest of the year. And I always see your tweet of, I pity people that aren't following this sport, in December, January, and February. St. John's was one of the great stories this year in our game. And I'm curious, John, what you saw for the firsthand seat there, the Big East tournament as well. Is college basketball fully back in New York? Is it taken over New York again?
The answer is yes. When Madison Square Garden at the end of the season is telling me that they're preparing dates to hit St. John's with to get teams in, that wasn't happening 2 or 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. St. John's was bringing dates to them, and Madison Square Garden was sending the bill, and it's a hefty bill. The Garden was making money. Knicks playoff-like money in November, December, January and February.
Mm-hmm.
5 consecutive Saturdays that the Garden was sold out for college basketball. 19,000 people. And a legit 19K. Look up to the roof, and they're there at the Garden. It was electrifying. Absolutely electrifying. Rick has this presence, Kevin, where people who are at these games are more enthralled with him at times than the game itself. He's moving all over the place. He is into his players. He's into the refs. He's into the fans. He's just carries this presence. What he has showed, this is the powerful thing about this. For years, we've been like, basketball in New York City, it's different. Well, the Knicks start to make playoff runs, and you're like, yes, it is different. Yes, it is different. The NBA playoffs are coming, and I know the Knicks are the 3, and the Knicks have had a topsy-turvy year. But if you're a New York fan, you're telling me with your home court advantage, you don't have any faith that something could happen crazy? Of course, you have a real home court. Who knows what could happen? I don't think you're gonna beat Boston, but you never know. What the Garden was for St. John's basketball was out of the realm of possibility, even when Rick got hired. I thought he would get him going, Kevin. 31-5? No way. I would have thought like 23-13. I didn't think they'd be that good. And to get into the top 5 in the country, unbelievable. It's an amazing story for a guy who's 72 years old, who acts like he's 42. I'm not kidding you. I mean, Rick is up at 4:30 in the morning. He goes to Equinox. He does an hour on the machines, if not an hour and a half, goes home, walks the dog 2 miles, picks up whatever his wife needs, gets in the car, drives to campus, works out the players for 2.5 hours, stops in his office, does 30 minutes, practices 1 to 3:30 or 4, does another hour of office work, and then says to whoever's around, does anyone want to grab dinner? Eats like a king for an hour and a half, 2 hours, has a cocktail or 2, heads back home, watches film, goes to sleep. Next morning, let's do it all over again. The guy is wired like an old schooler, and it's very refreshing in 2025 because a lot of the things that people criticized him for, let's face it, Kevin, in college sports now, there are no rules. And what he's done there, go on St. John's campus. That campus still needs a massive overhaul. But what Rick's doing is he's building buildings. They're building a brand new practice facility. They've rebuilt the Garden atmosphere. So whenever this job becomes available, I'm not saying the next person's doing the job that Rick did, but look at the value. Whoever the next coach is going to see, man, if you build it, they will come. That's what Rick has brought to New York City. He's reestablished St. John's as an identifiable brand near the top of the sport. And that's cool for college hoops, not just in March. That moves the needle in December and January for the common person.
Mm-hmm. Well, they've been, St. John's and Rick in particular, been a great partner for Collect. We've done a number of promotions with them this year to get the memorabilia and historic mementos from this season in the hands of their fan base. And we've seen the enthusiasm firsthand. So that's been great to watch. It was the Big East tournament, John, and an Instagram post that I learned something about you. I didn't really know about your love of popcorn. And I know you that led to, I believe, your endorsement with Orville Redenbacher. Just talk about happenstance and things coming together. But tell me about where your love of popcorn comes from. And what I have to ask you is, which arena in America, because you go to so many, has the best popcorn?
So which arena would be Hinkle Fieldhouse? I think that they
Mm,
have elite popcorn, the old
okay.
school, the
Okay.
Butler venue. It's a special tradition. There's
Yeah.
just when the sunlight peeks in on a Saturday afternoon, high level popcorn.
I'm
And the
envisioning a very old school, kind of like you see at Disneyland, the very old school popcorn machine
yes,
you find from the 1920s,
yes, and I am a sucker for the Disney World down in Florida that I
Oh,
believe
it's elite.
they have a
Absolutely elite.
bottomless and it's bottomless.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's you've got a fan in me right there.
Okay.
You do there. I would say, I can remember from an early age at Jacobs Field in Cleveland on a Friday night at the ballpark with the likes of Jim Thome and Kenny Lofton and man Robbie Alomar, and then in
Some
addition.
Manny Ramirez in there for a
Manny
while.
Ramirez, Marty Cordova. I mean, list goes on and on. A young CC Sabathia
Yeah.
on the rubber, and then those, the 2007 Indians who really could have won a World Series. They were up 3-1 on the Red Sox. And if you ask me, Kevin, where my sports fandom lies, I need to see a World Series championship before I die. I don't know whenever that happens. I'm 29, so we got time. But man, my Cleveland baseball team has come so close. And whenever they do, if it happens in that ballpark, there will be fans on the field. It will be. I'm not kidding you. Those people will. They haven't won one since '48.
Yeah.
So I can remember the old school. It almost looked like Pop Rocks.
Hmm. Oh,
The owner
absolutely.
of
Yeah.
that
Hmm.
this black bag in the special material. That had the popcorn in it where like the popcorn just had a certain taste in that bag, and it had some like different colors on it and the popcorn kernels, and hopefully somebody out there watching this knows what I'm talking about. Getting the big bag, bringing it back to your seat in the ballpark on a Friday night, and just enjoying a bag of popcorn. For me, it was a combination of a couple of things. Number one, yes, you can eat the snack unconsciously. Yes, that is a very good thing. I don't care what the nutritional facts are. There's something about that. It's habitual. You sit in your seat, and Kevin, there seems like there's no end to the bag. So for me, I was hooked because a hot dog, it has your 4 minutes of enjoyment. A burger, 7 minutes of enjoyment. Hell, even peanuts could get old because you're
Yeah.
constantly doing this. Popcorn for me held a place right there. And then I can remember going to my grandma's and she had the old glass bowl, that old school 80s style, like orange or green, like 80s colors, glass bowl where, if you put a little pinch of salt and some butter on it, I don't know that it was just something about the bowl that like kept all that stuff with the popcorn and you brought down the heavy bowl and you could enjoy it in your grandparents' basement watching a game, having a great time. And Kevin, if when I was sleeping over their house, if I went up and made another bag as a 12-year-old, I didn't have my parents there to say, "Nope, that's enough. You're not doing that again." They didn't know or they couldn't hear the microwave going. Either or, it didn't matter. That's how it became my favorite snack, and I've loved it forever. And what happened was, I mean, I didn't know that it would produce what it did. What essentially occurred was I covered a Villanova Marquette game on a Friday night. I did not need to be at the game, but I had a game in Philly the next day. So I went to the game, one to watch Cam Jones, who I thought was one of the best guards in the country at Marquette, but two to get to Villanova and to get a pulse on the coaching situation there, which was probably going to end. And I had not covered a game from Media Row really all season. So I sat down and Kevin, I was starving. I kind of thought to myself, like, I don't want to go get a meal and I just need a snack. So I go and get a popcorn. I sit down. Somebody takes a picture of it. Then that gets picked up by Barstool and they ask me about it on Pardon My Take. And out of that is Orville Redenbacher saying, "Hey, we want to make you an offer. Can you do some endorsements for us during March? Here's what the money looks like." And I said, "Popcorn's my favorite snack. Oh, by the way, we're going to send you stuff." I got Jolly Time sending boxes of popcorn. I got Oh Pop Pop I have the yellow ball that just you could it both makes it and is a ball. Fantastic. And Orville Redenbacher wants to do a full-on deal. All sending me. If you looked at our house right now, we have probably within the house in and around, I'm just gonna guess like 180 bags of popcorn
Oh,
from
wow.
different companies. It's absurd. They're all hanging out in, we found a storage space and it's fine, but we've had to give them to neighbors and give them to friends because we don't have enough room. We got a baby on the way. But that's how it all came about. It is, as my father-in-law told me, he goes, why couldn't you have said you love steak or lobster or lobster?
Yeah.
So I'm going to think about that next time.
Well, I'm glad you've got so much popcorn on hand, John, because I know one event you're going to need it for is 2 weeks from today. We're shifting out of college basketball mode here with you for just a second, because the other thing I know that you love
Yeah.
almost as much or maybe more than college basketball is Cleveland sports. Your beloved Brownies have the number 2 pick, not number 1, where maybe there would be a franchise quarterback, maybe. But number 2, you've got your shot at kind of a two-way star we haven't seen the likes of in a while. And Travis Hunter, you've got Abdul Carter, you've got your pick of anybody else in the draft, not named Cam Ward. Pop a few of those bags and tell us 2 weeks from today on that Thursday night in Green Bay, what name are you hoping gets called from the podium?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I am okay with any of the 3 names. I think in my heart of hearts, I'm hopeful for Abdul Carter because I do think he's the best overall talent in the class, and that he'll have a long NFL career. That's where my hopes are. And if they walk away with that, that's wonderful. I am so unsure of Shedeur Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
And Kevin, I think he's got ability and talent. I think he throws a good ball. Some have criticized his deep ball. Is he as creative as Ward? No. But I would come back and say this. One, if Caleb Williams comes out this year and tries to be overly creative and he's turning the football over, being overly creative doesn't matter. Like, you got to put it together. Mm-hmm. Nobody had Jaden Daniels doing what he did this past year. We all thought he could be good. We didn't think he'd be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. So, for me, if the Browns once again don't take Shedeur, then the instant thing is, okay, you did not take him, which at number 2, honestly, Kevin, at number 2, I see Carter or Hunter being potentially more valuable if we're looking at talent. And I don't think I'm alone in thinking that. Because I think a lot of people are like, Shedeur Sanders, probably 5 to 8, in that range. And that's where the Giants thing comes about and whatnot. However, let's just say that the Giants take him. Or let's just say he goes 6th, 7th, 8th, somewhere in that range. Or hell, 4th. Let's just say he pans out to be a franchise quarterback. Yet again, I will have watched us pass on a franchise quarterback. And what else really matters? So I'm a little bit, the only reason why I'm wary is all the headlines, the distractions, knowing the Browns and the volatility within the organization. Could this be a match made in hell with the Sanders drama and Dion drama and all that stuff? Because I think everybody and their mother, Kevin, thinking this, correct me if I'm wrong, whoever drafts Shedeur, they don't have a stable organization because they're near the top of the draft.
Right.
Well, what's the instant take going to be? How soon until Deion Sanders becomes the head coach of this team?
Yeah.
That cloud is a lot. It's a lot to deal with. So I am going to be fine and happy if at number 2 they take a Carter, and that would probably be my pick. Mm-hmm. If they pick Sanders, I will be good because I am in the class of until you get it right at QB1, what else really matters? But I will be concerned about some of the big picture drama items that have already happened before he's even with the team.
Yeah. So, John, we've talked for 45 minutes here, and I don't know if it's by design. You've mentioned all the Cleveland teams. You've mentioned several teams that have high seeds in the Eastern Conference playoffs. I don't believe you've mentioned the words Cavaliers.
Yeah.
Who have clinched the number 1 seed in the East. You talk about Boston and the Knicks. That may be the suspicious Clevelander in you, who's just not even mentioning what's going to happen, what starts next week when they start the postseason. What's your level of optimism, hope, Cleveland concern about the Cavs?
Well, I'm excited, and they've had a sensational season at 63-16. Kenny Atkinson deserves NBA Coach of the Year. He's been absolutely outstanding in every way. He's gotten certain players to develop, to evolve. KJ, 2 years ago, they got punked by the Knicks. Mm-hmm. Last year, they beat the Magic, but they had to beat the Magic on Orlando's terms. So, when those have been your results, there's obviously a skepticism of can they live up to everything in the postseason? The same way that I think Oklahoma City is going to deal with that in the playoffs too. Like, can they break through? Can they do it? Do they have what it takes? Even though they've been extraordinary all season long. I believe the Cavs will make the conference finals.
Okay.
I believe that because I don't think Orlando, Atlanta, Chicago, or Miami are good enough to beat Cleveland in the first round. The Bucks, could Giannis put a run together, and maybe if Dame is healthy, could the Bucks give the Cavs a challenge? Sure, because of star power, but Milwaukee defensively is not particularly good. Donovan Mitchell's going to do his thing. I love the DeAndre Hunter ad on both ends of the floor, and Evan Mobley could have a huge series there. Evan Mobley, to me, might be the single biggest key to this whole thing because you've built him up. He's still only 23. Like, the Cavs are still relatively young. All these players are within either just before the prime of their careers based on the math or right in it like a Donovan Mitchell. I think the Cavs will make the conference finals. I think they'll be an underdog even with home court advantage against the Celtics because I think people just know Boston has had injuries and Boston fully healthy is still such a monster of a team because of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and with Derek White in the equation and with Holiday and Peyton Pritchard's shot making. Boston's just a monster of a team. And I still believe when they're at full strength, they're the best team in the league. So in that regard, if the Cavs can give them a great series and it goes 6 or 7, will I be heartbroken? Sure. But that would tell me then, all right, are you one away? Mm-hmm. Success in the NBA is not linear. But this has been a build. It's been a build. And I think Kobe Altman, Mike Gansey, and company have gone about it the right way. Now let's see if they could put it all together. So I am skeptically confident in my team. I'm never, as a Clevelander, I'm never all out. We've got this no matter what. Although LeBron James was the closest I've ever been to that.
Yeah.
In 2016, I mean, I'll give you the story. I've never told this story before. And we've been going long, but you got to hear this story. So I intern at Fox Sports. You know my work ethic and whatnot and putting in the hours. I get about a week into the internship. And I tell my bosses at Fox, I said, hey guys, the Cavs won the championship. I'm not going to be able to make it in on Wednesday. Can I switch a day? I got to go to this parade. And they all gave me a double take. I'm not going to lie to you. They all gave me a double take. And I'm sure in that moment they were all thinking like, what the hell? Kevin, I have one sports rule. I will not miss a parade.
Yeah.
I will not miss a parade. I will
not
especially
when Cleveland had not had a parade since what, 1954 or something? Or
64.
Yeah. So, yeah, the Browns. Yeah.
I got on a plane, flew a red eye, landed, literally got in the car, went downtown to the parade with my family. I'll never forget. We all had hats. We all had T-shirts. Stayed for the parade. Went to the Indians game that night. It was 2016. Got picked up by my dad. I said to my dad, I go, listen, I said, I don't know much, but I've been watching Indians baseball for 20 years. I think this team could go to the World Series. And my dad said to me, you are blowing smoke. You're riding championship high. I go, Dad, I'm telling you right now, this team's really freaking good. Francisco Lindor, Jose Ramirez, like all these guys are on the come up. Watch out. Sure enough, they make the World Series for the first time since 97 that year. It was a dream of a year. Then we almost won the World Series.
Yeah.
But literally, Kevin, get picked up, sleep one night at home, fly back to LA, go right into the office. Was literally in Cleveland for 20 hours to see that parade and wouldn't have had any other way.
Well, I can't tell you how much I applaud that choice. There's nothing like a parade as a sports fan because yes, winning the championship is obviously the ultimate high, but that comes with a tension and a nervousness and a watching the final clock or the final outs or what have you. A parade, there's none of that. It's just a celebration of the team. You've already won. It's the entire city. I've only had one in my lifetime. The Sonics parade in Seattle in '79. I was supposed to go to with my grandfather. That didn't happen. Went to the Seahawks parade in '14, which was the coldest day in Seattle I can remember in a long time. But it's memories I'll never forget. Just absolutely phenomenal. I cannot speak high enough of going to a championship parade. I applaud your decision. I'm glad they didn't fire you after a week and say this guy's got no work ethic because that would have been a massive mistake. But yeah, a terrific decision on your part. So last question I have for you, John. We at Collect, we talk about things people collect and what they're accumulating and memories and history and all that. One thing I know you are collecting, because you have a very joyous day coming here this spring. Your wife is expecting, you're going to have your first child. And I know as you've been going around the country, you've been getting baby gifts at certain, from schools and arena. What's your best baby gift that you've gotten so far?
So I've gotten a couple of things. Number one, my wife's friend Lauren makes different shirts or whatnot. So she made him a bunch of Cleveland onesies, which were fantastic. Also a t-shirt that says, my t-shirt says the original, and the baby's t-shirt says the remix. That was very classy.
Yeah.
And another gift that I didn't know, Kevin, I hear these terms and I'm like, what is this? First time father here. An outfit, but it's not an outfit, but a thing that basically helps the baby when he starts to walk, that if he falls, protects his knees, but like it's the cutest thing. And I thought, man, they think of everything nowadays. Like, I'm sure when we were falling, it was like, take the fall, get up and rub the dirt off your knees. But it's a protector for when he falls, to something as great as the diaper genie, because I know I'm going to need a diaper genie.
You absolutely are. Yep.
A diaper genie is great. You can never have enough diapers. I will take all the diapers in the world. Maybe that's going to be my new bounty. It's just as many diapers as humanly possible. But we are so excited. My wife, Victoria, I got to shout out my wife here. The last 5 weeks, I've probably been home a total of 5 nights. Mm-hmm. And it really takes commitment and dedication to get through the last month. And nobody sees that. Nobody sees what the spouse goes through. So she has been unbelievable. One, dealing with pregnancy and going to appointments and stuff. I've tried to make as much as I humanly can. And two, taking care of our house. And for that, I'm grateful. And we can't wait to welcome our son in May. And you know how hard it is for me, but I am truly, Kevin Jackson, going to unplug. And if somebody reaches out to me, I am not going to immediately reply. I'm going to say, that can wait. I'm focused on my family.
Well, I'm skeptical of your ability to pull that off because I know your work ethic, but I wholeheartedly applaud that choice. I hope you're able to. John, congratulations to you and Victoria, everybody from me and everyone at Collect. We wish you all the best of luck. I hope you're able to take your young son to a championship parade before he's too old. That would be fantastic. But thank you for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure, my friend, and we'll be definitely watching you on all your various platforms as College Hoops kicks in. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you, KJ. Always great.